Welcome back, and let's talk about animal communication. I honestly feel that one of the things we've lost with technology is the ability to communicate. Texting and video chatting can't always express the emotions we do, especially like on Facebook, and people end up getting hurt. So please be kind and please be detailed in your expression so the person knows exactly what you're talking about. Love this picture. Looks like he's telling them a secret. What's the purpose of communication, or what is communication? It's an action by a sender that influences the behavior of the receiver. It may be purposeful, but it doesn't have to be. Sometimes you just burst out in song because you want to, but there's usually a purpose in the animal world why some kind of signal is being sent. In the case of bats, they send out a pulse listening for their prey. And then the moths hear the bats and try to evade them, but the sound comes back so quickly that the bats are pretty effective. There are 4 different types of communication. There's visual, auditory, tactile, and chemical. We've talked about chemical before with pheromones. We'll see those again. Each of these is vital to survival. Each one of these is vital to our survival. And we know that people without one of these abilities to communicate, their other abilities to communicate or senses become sharper, and they're able to sometimes navigate better than those of us that have all 4 abilities. We've already talked about pheromones. We're not going to talk much about those. They go through water and air, and they signal different meanings. Sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's reproduction, but there's actually a pathway. And this leads back to what we just talked about with the endocrine chapter. The hypothalamus in the brain, the signals actually get back to the hypothalamus, and then it sends the message out to the different parts. But it comes from the vomeronasal organ in your nose that's able to pick up these odors and the pheromones. And I thought it was kind of interesting. I was Googling pheromones, trying to find some interesting things. And a lot of our attraction to each other is pheromone based. I told a group last night at the review that I saw a new dating deal online. You bring us a t-shirt that you've wore for a while, and they seal it in a plastic bag, and then they pass them out, and if you get a bag that you like the smell, then you get to meet the person, which is kind of crazy. But that's how we're attracted. The more perfumes and deodorants and things you put on, the more you cover up your own natural pheromones. And the ability to literally sense the person that you care about is through that smell, and that's how we know that pheromones work. It works in both males and females, marking the territory. Here are the cheetahs marking its territory. The ants follow a line. If you have ants in your house, spray the path, and they'll get disoriented and actually lose their way. And so they'll not be able to get in the direction that they were going. So you've interrupted their pheromone path. If you saw the movie A Bug's Life, you saw that happen. Auditory communication, this is sound. It's faster than chemical communication, obviously. It's going to be effective both day and night. You can change the loudness, the pattern, repetition, duration. Right now, the frogs are all outside calling like crazy, trying to track the females for mating. And so it's a quick communication. Frogs call together because there's safety in number, so that they're less likely able to be eaten by a predator. So language is the ultimate auditory communication. Unfortunately, we don't use it properly, and a lot of misunderstandings can take place. Here's some examples of auditory communication. There's the warning call telling them to scatter, and there, look at the difference between the eagle warning and the leopard warning. So one's like air, one's on land. The breaching of the whales, that's a communication. I love this with the dolphins. I know, it's corny, but there you go. Visual communication is important. Being able to see during the day is important. The little poison frogs, they're out during the day, which is weird for amphibians because they have to stay moist. But if they're bright colored to warn that they're predators, then what good does it do? Nothing if they're out at night. So they're out during the day. Other visual communications, if you've got a dog pack, you know that there's a dominant, there's an alpha, and the others will drop down on their bellies or they'll roll over on their backs to show that they're submissive, or they'll put up their flanks and their tail and their hair and everything will go up so that it's a threat posture. Female fireflies, these are pretty tricky. Here's a display with the baboon. Obviously the other one's not that worried about it, but that would be a type of visual display. Here's some more examples with the wolves and the dogs, the cats, and the spider down there. That's a threatening display that it's doing. And then here's the female fireflies. These are pretty clever. They have a pattern that imitates another firefly, and typically it's not their same species, so when the male firefly comes in thinking he's going to pick up a girl, she eats them. So not a beneficial for the male, but definitely beneficial for the female. There, I think that's a grouse there showing its feathers off its big chest. And then there, of course, is the brightly colored poison dart frogs. Little bitty. If you've ever seen those in the zoo, they're like smaller than a quarter, teeny tiny. Here's some more. Look at those butterflies or moths. Look how big the eyes are on them. Definitely a threat. Another animal's going to look at that and go, I'm not going after that. And then you see the fish blending in, the different bright colored spiders, and then the praying mantis there himself, making him look big and bad so that he can protect himself. Tactile communication is touch. All kinds of touch, from feeding to direction of the food for foraging to just human contact. Grooming is a touch, tactile communication. It's what keeps the group together. Here you see the one in the center. Everybody's crowded around him trying to figure out what the direction of the food is. And up there you can see it does what's called a waggle and a round dance. And that indicates the direction of the food. Pretty incredible that somebody figured that out. But that's how they know where to go find the food. Lots of touching, grooming, that's bonding. Critical, very important in humans as well as in animals. In psychology, you probably learned about the study in the orphanage, I think in Russia. They had two groups of babies. One group they barely touched. They touched them to change them, to feed them, and that was it. The other group, they brought in some mentally challenged young ladies and they rocked them and they played with them. The first group of babies, some of those died from lack of contact. Physical contact is so important. The other group did well because they had the vital connection that they needed in order to be able to survive. So hug each other, love each other, touch each other. It's important. After COVID, not right now, but definitely let those you know around you that you care. So what is fitness? Fitness is the ability to reproduce and survive. So the ecology of behavior helps us shape our behaviors to survival. It's important that we be able to act in a certain way so that we are able to survive and reproduce. So we see those still today because those behaviors are adaptive. One thing that seems really mean is territoriality, but it's vital in order to maintain the area for each animal to have its own space. And it can have a large energy cost to continually defend your habitat. So if each animal knows where its habitat is at, there's less likely that you waste your energy fighting for the habitat and spend more time getting food. If you ever drive down the road and look up, you'll see hawks every so many telephone poles. That's because they've established their own territory. And territory is important. It's the one thing that's important in order for you to be able to survive. If you want to see a great movie, it's called Never Cry Wolf. It's really, really old, but they do a lot with animal behavior in there, and I highly, highly recommend that movie. Territoriality is also likely to occur during reproduction. Sometimes animals are solitary, but then during reproduction they kind of mark out their area so that encroachers don't come in and try to take the females. And here's just a couple examples of two animals defending their territory. The little boxing rabbits on the right and then the cats on their left. It could be during reproduction or it could be food, but they think the rabbits is a reproductive type of behavior. Foraging for food is important. This is also going to increase fitness. The best you can find food, the best behavior that you have to find food, the more likely you are to stay alive. Now, when we're looking at reproductive strategies in fitness, we see that there's polygamy, polyandry, and then monogamy. Now, monogamy we're familiar with, one man, one female, or one partner together. Polygamy is a little bit different. The single male mates with multiple females, like a lion pride. And so the females definitely invest more energy in the offspring than the males do. They typically don't do anything with the rearing. Here you see, I believe these are quail over here. You have the females that are brown and the males bright colored, because the females sit on the nest, so they have to be camouflaged a bit. And so one male will have a harem of females, just like in the lion pride. In the lion pride, if a new one takes over, he kills the cubs from the previous one, and then he mates with the females so they'll be ready to have his own kids. So it's awful, but that tends to work for them. Polyandrous, one female mates with more than one male. We see this in the bees, we see this in the horseshoe crabs and the frogs. Those are all males trying to mate with that one single female. The environment can't support a bunch of young at a time, and so she'll mate with different males and lay out the different eggs, hoping that some of those are successful. There's a female, I forget which one it is. There's a bird that she mates with a male and puts an egg in his nest, and then she mates with another male and puts an egg in his nest, and so on. She doesn't raise any kids, the guys do it. So she doesn't have anything to do with the child rearing. It's up to each of the male to take care of its own egg. Monogamous, one male mates with one female, and the males and females help rear the young. When the males have limited mating opportunities, you usually see monogamous here. There's territoriality, but the male is certain that his offspring are his, so he's going to invest time in protecting them and taking care of them. And some animals we know mate for life, and it's important that we respect that as far as their boundaries. So if someone took some feathers out of a goose or a duck or something to keep them in its pond, not realizing he had mated with the female, and so the other bird didn't leave, it stayed with them all winter long, and I don't think they made it because they weren't able to migrate where they needed to go. So monogamy is there's a lot more invested in the offspring, in the raising of the offspring. And here's just some examples of those. Sexual selection is important. Typically the females choose. The females are choosy about which male they want because they want one that's going to increase the fitness, which means reproduction and survival of the offspring. So the females have to be choosy because they have very limited resources and they want to get the best male possible. Some of the spiders, she'll mate with the male. Sometimes she eats them afterwards. Then she holds the sperm for a couple of days. If nothing better comes along, she'll fertilize her eggs. If another male comes along, she'll ditch that first sperm and then mate with the second spider. And that may continue until she decides she's got the best sperm possible. So girls, you should be choosy. You're picking the best, and guys too, picking the best ones that's going to increase your fitness. So sexual selection often results in the females choosing and the males competing. The peahen's going to choose the peacock with the most elaborate tail. The tail, though, could be a detrimental. It could be the larger the tail, the more likely it's captured by a predator. So not everything is necessarily adaptive. Here you've got the two males competing with the horns and the antlers. And what about societies? Living in a group is important. It helps you to avoid predators. Even though it doesn't look like you're being helped, you actually are if you live in a group or a society. In the wolf pack, the younger members of the group, or the non-alpha male and female, they're actually helping raise the cubs. Usually the cubs are related to them. So it's like taking in your sister's kids to raise them because your sister's not able to. So it does increase fitness if you live in a society. Plus you have a greater chance of reproducing. In the wolf pack, if something happens to the alphas, you could actually move up to be an alpha. So there is benefit to being in a group, even though you may not be at the top. And dominant hierarchies, this is the way to keep societies organized and to keep less issues arising during the society. We see this in the dog pack. If you don't have a clear alpha, there's a lot of fighting that goes on. And so having that dominant ones to the lower ones, there's actually, even though it seems like they're at a disadvantage, everybody's still getting what they need. It just keeps the society together. Altruism, this is my favorite type of behavior here, is the behavior that has altruism in our sense. In the animal world, it decreases the lifetime reproductive success but benefits the society. The more altruistic you are, the better your society is. The more you help your society, the better you are. So think about today, what's something you can do for the people around you? Is there a food pantry you can donate to? Is there someone you could go mow their lawn or help them out? So the more you help out the others, the better the society. Now, it does have a chance to decrease your own reproductive success, like we see with the wolves there. But as I mentioned, if you increase the group's productivity, then you have a better chance of surviving. If you keep the alphas, help them, then you're going to get food as well. So it's important. Altruistic behavior is important in a society. Inclusive fitness as well is looking not only at reproductive success of yourself, but also your relatives, so those around you. So here you have the little meerkat that's watching out. It's on lookout. It puts itself at risk, but yet it increases the benefit of the whole one. And these little mice are cute, obviously trying to help the one that's falling down. And so you're not letting the other one die. You're helping increase their fitness. Reciprocal altruism, again, helping out in the nest. You see the group grooming there. You see the monkeys helping get the water or food or whatever it is. And sometimes it's between different species and sometimes the same species. So reciprocal altruism at its basis is to help the society, maybe not to help you, but to help the society. And that's what's important. Just remember, there's a lot we all can do if we just take a little time to help the world around us.